Good morning and welcome to Morning Movie News, where I'm sure you've noticed things are ridiculously quiet when it comes to entertainment news. I'll even take some big TV news at this point. And I looked back at last year. I was like, were things this slow after last year's Thanksgiving? And in fact, there was a Batman v Superman trailer that came out, and also one for X-Men Apocalypse. That came out actually the second week of December. So maybe we'll get a big trailer next week. But methinks everyone's waiting for Rogue One, which of course hits theaters the third weekend of December, so there'll be a heck of a lot of news coverage that week. And as I've said before, the Golden Globe nominations come out the same week, so I wish they'd spread it out a little bit more. But anyway, despite how quiet it is, I managed to find 3 really interesting stories to discuss today. And then, of course, as always, a viewer question. All right, so let's start out with a story about getting paid in Hollywood. And that is Hollywood Reporter. I don't know if Hollywood Reporter decided to look into this themselves or if someone was like, you know what? Because I know not everyone loves Tony Gilroy, right? He's a screenwriter, director in Hollywood. So part of me wondered if someone was like, I'm going to leak this because I just don't want Tony Gilroy to get away with it. So anyway, for instance, that's one of the ways that Bleeding Cool gets most of their stories. People seeking justice, so they leak the story to the press. But anyway, Tony Gilroy, as you know, is not only a writer on Rogue One, but he's also handled the reshoots. And in some ways has become the new director of the film. So embarrassing for Gareth Edwards. If he ever works again, I don't feel sorry for the producers who hire him because they should know better at this point, after Godzilla and now Rogue One. But anyway, the story says that Tony Gilroy was hired to first just rewrite the script, to tweak it a little bit, at $200,000 a week. And I saw a couple of people in the comment section for this article say, that's ridiculous, Hollywood pays people too much money. But if you're a script doctor, that's not a lot of money. That's not unusual to be paid that amount. And also, I think they only expected Tony Gilroy to work on it for like maybe a week or a week and a half. So they didn't expect to pay him that much at all. That's why he charged so much, because it shouldn't take too much to, fix up a script. It's like, these guys do it professionally. He really should be able to do it in a week. But Disney, I guess, took a look at the film, or they weren't happy with it, and they were like, oh, this needs a lot more work. Tony, darling. And so he stayed on the film for such a long time that his paycheck ended up being $5 million. Because not only did he rework the script and handle the reshoots, but he also had to significantly rework the ending. Some people are saying the rumor is that, does everyone still die? Do people feel that's not really a family movie ending? I don't know. I don't know if Rogue One, is that really supposed to be a family movie? And if it was, why would you pitch the concept of Rogue One in the first place? When you were in the room, and I believe, according to Star Wars legend, it was like an elevator pitch or something. But if someone said, I want to do a Dirty Dozen movie where they go and get the Death Star plans, and then they all die at the end, what do you think? I'd be like, this is a family franchise, so no. Like maybe for like a Netflix series or something, we could go in that route, but I can't do that in the movies. So I'm very curious to see what ending Tony Gilroy came up with. There's also a little bit of some people guessed in the credits, and I love Hollywood gossip, and that's that they didn't want Tony Gilroy to challenge Gareth Edwards for director credit on the film. He would never do that. Tony Gilroy wants to work again. And as you can see, it's very lucrative fixing other people's movies. So he does have a writing credit, and thanks to the Hollywood trades, everybody's covered this, from the Hollywood Reporter to Deadline to The Wrap to Variety. Everybody knows that Tony Gilroy pretty much made that movie. Even the fans know it. It's gone beyond the industry. So he doesn't really need a credit. And, I think when Gareth Edwards' name comes up, everyone's going to be like, oh, why did you hire Gareth Edwards? But also, so anyway, I think that money's totally deserved, and I think it shines an interesting spotlight on a part of the industry, and that's being a script or movie doctor. As you can see, again, it's quite lucrative. It's a genuine job that you can have in the movie industry. Like, for instance, Thomas Lennon, who is from Reno 911, and he's also on the new Odd Couple opposite Matthew Perry. He's also a screenwriter, and he's a script doctor for a lot of films. Diablo Cody. Sometimes script doctors don't even get credit. They don't even get a writing credit officially. So Tony Gilroy came out great. This isn't Tony Gilroy's first rodeo, though. While he's made a lot of small films with George Clooney, he's also, of course, one of the main creative people behind the Bourne films. I don't believe anymore, but to such a point that he ended up directing The Bourne Legacy with Jeremy Renner, and that did not work out. But and he, from what I've heard, he made quite a bit of money on the Bourne movies as well, because he has a great agent who writes him wonderful contracts. Also, the Gilroy family, you should know this, the Gilroys are a Hollywood family. His brother Dan Gilroy is also a screenwriter. His big directorial debut was Nightcrawlers, you might recall, with Jake Gyllenhaal, and Riz Ahmed, who's in Rogue One. And also Dan Gilroy is one of the writers on Kong Skull Island. Their father was a famous playwright, their mother's also a writer, and their third brother is a film editor. You get these Hollywood families. It's like the Deschanels. Zoe and Emily are actresses who are well known, both on TV these days. Zoe Deschanel, New Girl, and Emily Deschanel on Bones, but also they're daughters of Caleb Deschanel, who is an award-winning cinematographer. So a lot of times you'll have these mid-range, they're not like the Douglases, right, like Kirk and Michael Douglas, but you'll get these mid-range families, even like Keira Knightley. Both her parents are in the film business in the UK. So you have parents who are like, and same actually goes for Benedict Cumberbatch. So you have parents who are like in the mid-range, low level in terms of success, but they have the connections. And then their child comes in and they're able to take the family to the next level in terms of name recognition. And then the family will probably stay in the business forever. It's also a little bit like the Barrymores. Drew Barrymore, of course, being related to the very famous John Barrymore. So it's worth knowing. It's worth knowing your Hollywood dynasties. All right. So anyway, that's the first story of the day. Now the second story of the day, I was actually asked about this by Paula from Rio de Janeiro. So I wanted to give credit where credit is due. I was planning to cover this story anyway, but while I was looking for a viewer question today, I saw that Paula asked about this, and I thought I thought it would be fair to give Paula a shout out. So hello, Paula. So Paula had asked me about the news that Rob Letterman has been hired to direct the Detective Pikachu movie as Legendary moves forward very aggressively with this. I think they can see that Pokemon Go wasn't like an ongoing phenomenon, but was really like a summer 2016 thing. So I think that they want to get this Detective Pikachu movie out sooner rather than later. But Paula's concern was that Rob Letterman really wasn't up to the task and that video game movies just never seem to catch a break. But Paula, I can understand your concern about Rob Letterman, but I think that maybe he might pull it off. So let's discuss. So the screenwriters on this, and Pokemon Go, by the way, is the whole reason that Legendary got the rights to Detective Pikachu to cash in, literally cash in on that craze. And so now they're really racing to, try and be relevant. Pokemon is incredibly popular over in Asia, obviously, particularly in Japan, and there's a lot of money to be made in Japan, but they to make this worth their time and effort, it needs to hit in the United States as well. But anyway, Nicole Perlman is scripting from Guardians of the Galaxy and Captain Marvel from the Disney writing program, and also with Alex Hirsch, is also her co-scripter, and he comes from TV animation, Fish Hooks and Gravity Falls. So I don't know. I'm not loving that screenwriting team either, to be perfectly honest with you. If only Dan Gilroy would write like Detective Pikachu, right? So anyway, Rob Letterman, though, he started out in animation. He directed Shark Tale. In animation, there's multiple directors. So he was a co-director on Shark Tale and Monsters vs. Aliens over at DreamWorks Animation. Shark Tale, not great. Monsters vs. Aliens, love that movie. That enabled him to jump to live action, and where he made Gulliver's Travels, the movie giving not just Paula, but I think all of us some pause. That movie is most famous for keeping Emily Blunt from being Black Widow because she had a prior commitment and she couldn't get out of it for filming Iron Man 2. Oh, how sucky for Emily Blunt. But it worked out quite well for, I think, not only Scarlett Johansson, but the MCU. Because Emily Blunt, I think the jury's still out on whether or not she's box office poison. But Rob Letterman went on to do, also with Jack Black, Goosebumps. And I thought Goosebumps was an excellent film. I thought it was just scary enough. I thought it perfectly captured not only the feeling of the Goosebumps franchise, the novels, but also the Halloween holiday. I thought that was a really good movie. If you haven't seen Goosebumps, you should watch it. It's very, very solid. I don't think it's like one of the best movies ever made, but it's surprisingly good. So I think that I would feel kind of good about choosing Rob Letterman as the director for Detective Pikachu if we had a good meeting, if I liked what he was saying, and I liked the way the rest of the project was gelling. If I was like, this seems pretty solid, I think Rob Letterman can bring it home. Can Rob Letterman, create the whole project from scratch? I don't think so, based on his rocky track record. But I think maybe the script does look good. But I think I would feel good about him. It's just, I don't know, and I'd be like, is Jack Black going to be in this movie? But we'll see. So that's the second story of the day. Now, speaking of Pokemon, Universal, some of you tweeted me this article, Universal Studios is really continuing their theme park war with Disney. They've got Disney on the ropes, by the way. They're doing quite well with the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. So they're always looking for ways to expand. You know, they've literally expanded the Wizarding World of Harry Potter with the new land, you know, especially in Orlando. They're in two separate parks, so they get you with the double ticket, right? They're like, if you want to go to both parks, you need to pay. I mean, if you want to go to both lands, you need to pay to go to both parks. And you can only ride the train, the Hogwarts Express, if you have that two-park ticket. And I'm like, well, I mean, I don't think you could see the two lands in one day anyway, so you would have to buy the, you know, I don't know. It's a little bit of price gouging, but I think that the Wizarding World of Harry Potter is so well realized that it's actually worth the money. It's very good if you haven't been there, but I bet many of you have. And that's why Universal is so excited and why Disney is so scared. So anyway, Universal has found a new partner to bring to their theme parks, and that is Nintendo. They're going to bring a Nintendo Land to Universal Studios Japan, Universal Studios Orlando, and Universal Studios Hollywood, where they also have Wizarding Worlds. And they promise to make it accessible to all in terms of both age, because I think people feel the Nintendo games skew a little young, and also gaming experience. They realize that not everyone's a gamer, particularly in the United States. Japan, many more people are gamers, and this is going to do quite well there. But anyway, in terms of Nintendo's properties, I think the big ones are Mario, obviously. They could have a Mario Kart racing theme park attraction, which I think would be pretty amazing. Also, Legend of Zelda, and then of course Pokemon. Nintendo is one of the owners of the Pokemon company. It's actually called the Pokemon Company. So I think that seems pretty good to me. I don't know if I would be super excited about like a Nintendo Land, but I'd have to see what the rides are. They haven't announced what they are or when this is all going to debut. But I think if I was certainly deciding whether or not I wanted to go to the Universal theme park, because right now I think most people still go to Disney World and they spend like 1 or 2 days at Universal, although Universal's trying to get to the point where you just take a Universal vacation. That's a tall order. Because Disney, I think, just has so much, not only pull, but legacy. But if I was deciding to make the effort to take time away from my Disney World vacation and go to Universal, I think that a new Nintendo Land would certainly contribute to maybe my saying yes. But I think that if Disney wants to compete, I think they should really maybe push Wreck-It Ralph and Zootopia. Basically, Rich Moore's work at the studio, coming from Futurama. I think those, he's co-directed both those movies, and I think they have a similar kind of feel, Wreck-It Ralph being a gaming movie. So that if I were Disney, and they've been very slow to incorporate Wreck-It Ralph into their parks. They finally greenlit a sequel. We're seeing, Ralph and Vanellope in a couple of parades. Really, that's the only thing they're doing with them. But if I were Disney, upon hearing this news, I would be really working on a Wreck-It Ralph attraction. All right, so those are the 3 stories of the day. I have a very interesting question from James Green. So James says, a frequent BTT viewer. Hello, James. So James says, hi, Grace. I have a question. Yesterday on Morning Movie News, well, this was actually, I believe, from earlier in the week. So James has been persistent with this question. Good job, James. The squeaky wheel got the grease. So James says, yesterday on Morning Movie News, you spoke of how Beyonce was struggling to have that big film like Whitney Houston's Bodyguard, which got me thinking. Lemonade was a visual album that has recently been named as the best music video and album by the likes of Time and Rolling Stone, and was a complex look at black womanhood, both in a wider concept and an intimate one. I strongly urge you to watch All Night by Beyonce on Vivo if you haven't already for a better look at this. I wonder, as Beyonce was a co-director with Khalil Joseph and executive producer on the film, do you think her cinematic legacy should be more focused on a position behind the camera as opposed to one in front of it? And do you think that in the future the visual album could become a theatrical genre of its own if they continue to be produced at the excellency of Lemonade? Thank you for reading, and I can't wait to hear your answer. All the best, James. Great question. Well, first of all, I think if Beyonce is involved with something, people want to see Beyonce. She's incredibly popular, and she's also very potent as a brand. So even if Beyonce didn't want to appear, which I don't see happening, if I were her producer, I'd be like, you gotta show up at least for a little bit, Beyonce. It's gonna drive major viewership. But as far as visual albums becoming a theatrical genre of its own, don't forget Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson he was like the music video king. And he also did some music video movies. Well, he started out in The Wiz. It's a little bit similar to Beyonce. He did the Captain EO short for the Disney theme parks. And also Moonwalker, which was his music video movie, basically. And he made fantastic music videos. I think acting ability is a big thing here. And I think that Beyonce, in the few movies that she has been in, she just doesn't really have the same spark as an actress that she does as a singer, as an entertainer, I guess you could say. Like, don't forget, in Dreamgirls, she was upstaged by Jennifer Hudson and, Eddie Murphy to some degree. And I think she was probably like, what's happening here? This is not good. So I think that Beyonce, to some degree, has realized that maybe she's not the best actress. So I think that to mimic, and I think Michael Jackson probably realized that as well. So I think for her to mimic his career path in terms of film is very smart. And you'll see that not a lot of singers have the capability of doing that. I think Taylor Swift is pretty strong. Her music video game is pretty strong, but I don't think it's quite Beyonce and Michael Jackson level. Bruno Mars, I think, is maybe getting to that similar level. He borrows a lot from Michael Jackson, period. But I think that, I still think Beyonce has come the closest to mimicking Michael Jackson's success with music videos. They're not quite what they ever used to be, which is kind of sad. It's a lost art. But also, I would say that while Lemonade was heralded as a really great work of art, I don't think it has like the repeat factor that like the Michael Jackson work does. And I think that's what's keeping Beyonce from totally, reaching the same heights. So I think Beyonce should stick with what she's doing. I think, as much as if she wanted to go into movies, I'd say go find a bodyguard type project, as I said in Morning Movie News earlier this week. But I think that I'd be like, the movies aren't really working for you. You did Austin Powers. You did all, you gave it a shot. You didn't really click. Make more music videos. And I think for her next one, and also Single Ladies, of course. Single Ladies, amazing. I would say, I would take Lemonade and Single Ladies and try and combine them into like some kind of, visual album that had a little bit more energy and it was a little more fun, right? She's done the serious bit, which worked very well for her. And then I think the next step should be something that's, takes it to the next level. But so, James, I think that, in short, I think that's a great idea. I think that's probably the best route for Beyonce. And I think, one of the best things you can do in life is you can be honest with yourself about where you're better in some areas than others, right? And I think that Beyonce has done herself a tremendous service by maybe realizing that she's not the best actress, but that certainly is not going to hold her back at all, right? Although Rihanna's still trying. Although I think Rihanna is a better actress than Beyonce. But, I don't think Rihanna will ever be a movie star. So I'd be curious, everybody, what are your thoughts, not only on today's top 3 stories, but James Green's viewer question? And, of course, what would you like to see covered tomorrow? And any questions that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.